welcome back everybody to this Shipper Update. I'm Zach Strickland here with Chief Economist Anthony Smith. Anthony, slow economic week.
It is, and Zach, it might be needed. I mean, last week was just amazing. I mean, we had housing starts, we had permits, we had retail sales, we had industrial production, we had the PPI. The list goes on, industry jobs claims. It just was a great week last week. It happens every once a month maybe, but this week, not as big of an economic releases, but there's still a lot of meaningful things to really glean from throughout this week. But this also gives us an opportunity to dive into some trends that we haven't really been able to, and that is why we have this beautiful chart here. This is a Logistics Managers Index, the LMI. For those of you who might not be familiar with this is an index that's put together by, I gotta have the full list out here, Arizona State, Colorado State, Rochester Institute of Technology, Rutgers University, University of Reno, Nevada. And so these great schools, and of course, Zach Rogers over there pulls it all together. So what we're seeing here is the LMI. So it reads just like the PMI. Anything above 50 is indicative of expansion, while anything below 50 is indicative of contraction as it pertains to the logistics industry. And so what we're seeing right now is a 75.22, and this is indeed expansion. And so this is also the 13th consecutive month of it being over 70, and 70 is kind of like that benchmark of, hey, this is exceptionally high right now. And so as we kind of continue to move on, we have to dive into some of the subcomponents, because that's one of the big things I love about not just the PMI, but the LMI as well, is that there are subcomponents to it that really show, hey, what's kind of propping up some of these movements as well.
Yeah, because the aggregate figure, of course, kind of hides and masks what's creating that. It's not just all about, transportation capacity, which is something that we talk about a lot here, and that's what a lot of people are thinking about. But this has warehousing as well as transportation in there. And of course, like I just mentioned on our last little segment with Carrier Update, the warehouses are getting a little bit full.
Exactly. I mean, inventory levels are just up there. And I think if we go into our next chart, we can kind of take a look as to what's happening with inventory costs and inventory levels. We have inventory levels here in the green line, and we can see that is moving up to an 80.18. And then we have inventory cost in this blue line, which is now at a 90.28. So we're seeing that there is incredible buildup in inventory levels, and of course that is also going to lead to inventory costs building up as well. And as we start to see, of course, more stuff come in on that maritime side, we were just talking about that in the Carrier Update, that doesn't really leave a lot of wiggle room for inventory costs. I mean, it continues to go up at a slower rate, but yeah, it's at a slower rate because it's at 90. It can't go up much higher than that right now.
Yeah, and talk about that for a second. I mean, we're talking about inventory levels. That looks like a bullwhip to me. Yeah. Like the whole over-ordering situation that we've been talking about for a while, finally catching up. Looks like demand might be easing up a little bit, or maybe we're just clearing some boats off a little bit faster. But the 90.28, now that is, I mean, it goes all the way to 100, right?
I believe so, unless, I mean, I gotta check with Dr. Zach Rogers on this one, if we can go above 100 on this one, because it's based around 50, so does over 100 just mean that we're setting stuff outside? I don't know at this point, but it really does kind of, it's getting up there, and it's concerning because, as you said, it's upstream, and that's concerning because downstream is dealing with things a lot better. It hasn't really hit that part just yet, but we're looking at wholesale, so we're looking at manufacturing, we're looking at things upstream. They're going through it right now. We're looking at winter inventories. He had this broken out if you want to go to the-lmi.com. Winter inventories have been spiking up, and that's really, I think, one of the things that really kind of grasped his attention at first was that inventories were picking up throughout these winter months. It started right before Christmas, I believe, and then going into the new year, usually when you start to see inventories drop off. And so all this just in time or just in case ordering really starting to pile up here. And that's really going to make the middle part to, I think, even second quarter of 2022 very interesting as inventories continue to really pile up here.
Yeah, I think you're talking about something that normally we see the demand go in the back half of the year. Yeah. And normally we see shippers traditionally will wait until summer months to kind of start really generally getting ready for that. But we've had this long extended period where shippers have not been out of peak season mode for almost like 18 months now. And finally they're starting to get, and they haven't had any traction. And now we're finally seeing that traction. But when you talk about upstream, we're talking about those manufacturers, right?
Yeah, manufacturers. Some wholesalers, I think, are also built into this as well. But it just kind of shows where some of those priorities are going to be and where something's going to have to be shuttled. I know anecdotal story, I was chatting with Kaylee, I think it was maybe a month or two ago, and she told me about how her friend got a great deal on a couch because it got sent straight from, you know, the manufacturer to, I think it was a secondhand store, thousands of dollar couch, but it was heavily discounted because they had nowhere to put it.
Just take it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're going over to Kaylee's to sit on our sweet new couch. Thank you for that, Anthony Smith. We'll toss it back over to Kaylee and Mike.